So to Ayula's point, let's spend a very important 2 minutes getting all of our favorite photos from online, putting them in our photo book, putting them inside of our library.
Are we going to continue with the private function, or are you going to get rid of that?
This guy?
Yeah.
No, I did what I wanted. Yeah. Do you like it?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we put photos into the library?
I'm trying to get Safari to load, but yes.
While Safari is loading, can you answer the question?
Yeah, what's up?
Using the frame for the collection view.
Using the frame for the collection view.
Is there a way to set bounds, set a frame to the safe area?
Using the frame. Yeah, so we could construct a CG rect where it's made from X and Y. X is self.view.bounds dot self.view.bounds dot. I don't know. Is there an X? Probably min X. And then self.view dot bounds dot min y. Then here's where we want to figure out the size, right? So width is going to be self.view.bounds dot, I don't know, I think it's just going to be the width, right? And the height is the one we have to count for the safe area in self.view.safe area layout guide. And let's see what properties we've got on here. Got a width anchor. We've also got a height anchor that we saw above. And anchors have, I don't know, some kind of constant somewhere. Does anyone remember that? I don't remember how to get it. I don't use it that often. Comma. I want to get the value of the height anchor. Height? Or like that? Is that what you're saying? No. So I don't want to set the constraint. I want to get the value of that height anchor. Because if we did this in the storyboard, man, I know it's somewhere. Let's go look at some documentation. NS layout constraints constant. Constant. A constant can be modified after creation. Cool. Setting the constant on an existing constraint performs much better than removing the constraint and adding a new one. That's exactly the old one. So, let's see. It looks like the height anchor is not constrained yet. We could say something like let self.view.safe area, nope, let height equal that safe area layout guide dot height anchor. Let's see if this works. Height dot, it's all the same stuff. We, in here? We don't have an extension. That'll be for the cells. This is just for the collection view itself. Like we're setting the size of the, that's okay. So, Ayula, to your question, we would have to figure out a way to actually create this height anchor and then get the constant. And hopefully Angela can help me do that. Hang on. Ooh, layout. Ah, man. layout. Ooh, a CG rect. Oh my God. What do you think it is? Layout guides frame and its owning views coordinate system.
Why would we have
Yep. So if we go back to my app, the view one, it is the actual frame of what's within the layout guide. Thank you, Angela. We'll just get the height from here.
That dot height doesn't refer to the line of 19.
I was going to try to play with the constraints, but let's not worry about that.
It's necessary, it seems really overboard.
Yep, we're just doing some math here, basically, geometry. Let's keep moving, though, because here's the thing about that frame. It's worthless, because we're going to set constraints after. It was fun playing with that frame, though. All right, we've got our collection view added to our super view. What do you guys want to do next? Let's set up some more views. Great. All right, let's set up the cells. So what do we have to do to set up those cells? Yeah. Make a new Cocoa Touch file. Nope. Yep. What do you want to call it? Yeah. Shopping, item, collection, view, cell. What a wonderful thing. Let's say I created this as the wrong subclass of something. I know it stinks, but the nice thing is we can just change the type. Wow. UI collection view cell does not have a view to load, so we get rid of that. What do we need in our collection view cell? You're going to create an override init? Okay. What are you going to do in there, Sam? Okay. Cool. What does that mean? Will it work? No. Required initializer, coder. Okay. What does that mean? Just insert this thing? Okay. This is a failable initializer. So, right now what this does is, if you ever try to initialize, so basically we're going to have two initializers for this. Let's look at another file just to do it. Let cell equal shopping cart collection view cell. It can initialize from two different ones here. This is going to initialize it from a frame. This is going to initialize it from data in a given unarchiver. Do you guys know what that is? Me either. This is a required initializer for UI table view cells. Sorry, UI collection view cells. This question mark means that this can fail. We can talk about this much more another time. It's not super important, but say that again? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Would it be required? Yes, because here we're declaring it, in the view controller we're calling it. But I don't think it's important to know, except that it's going to be required when you create the init for a subclass of a UI collection view cell. And just like any other function, this is another function that does whatever you need it to do. Right now, the way it's implemented is it's going to crash your app if you ever try to use this initializer. You could change this. Doesn't really matter right now. Let's set up our collection view cell. What do we need in our collection view cell? Hell yeah. Name, price, image. All right, let's do it. What kind of view should we use for our name? Cool. Lazy var label is equal to, guess we could do that whole thing here. Let label equal UI label. What color do you want the label's background color to be? All right. We're making Liana's view controller. Label.background color is equal to .purple. Great. Someone else, what color do you want the text to be? All right. Interesting thing going on here. Anything else you want to say about this label? What's that? Label.text alignment equal to centered. Sounds good to me. What do we have to do in order to make this work? That's right. We have to return that label. I'm just going to call it my label just in case. All right. Got a label. Oh, wait. What is this label for? What should we call this variable to make it a little more intuitive to a user? I'm going to call it the name label. Cool. Well, let's copy all that stuff. Let's just make that same thing for price label. All right, and lastly, let's make a lazy var called image view, which is a UI image view, equal to something. Let image view equal UI image view. Anything you want to do with this image view? Now let's just return it for now. All right, we've got our views. What do we have to do in order to make them part of this cell? Add subviews. Cool, where should we do that? Let's do it in the init. So let's create a private function called add subviews. Private func add subviews. It's going to be self dot. So we don't have self dot view in a cell. What is that similar thing that covers up the entire space of our cell called? It's not bounds. It's called a content view. The main view to which you add your cell's custom content. So you have a default view in your view controller. In your cell, you have something called a content view. So content view.add subview. There's name label. There is price label. And there is image view. Great. Anything else you want to do with this cell? Let's set up some constraints. All right. Set constraints. Make a private function. Set constraints. I'm going to be really obnoxious here and say set name label. Constraints should be its own function. Set price label constraints should be its own function, and set image view constraints should be its own function. Okay. Private func that, private func that, and private func that. All right. Boom. The before I even worry about how these are actually going to be laid out, and we can talk about that, what should I do for each of those views that this is setting that these are setting the constraints for? What's the thing that we want to avoid trying to mess with our constraints? The big wordy part, the resizing mask. Cool. So let's say name label dot translate blah 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 blah. False. Price label dot translates all that. It's false. And then let's say image view dot translates. It's false. Great. All right, now let's figure out how we want these things to be arranged. Nima, how do you want your name, price, and image to be arranged? Image here? All right. I'm sorry, my bad. Okay, so image centered, and I'll draw the color name, price. Sounds good to me. Cool. Which should we worry about the constraints for first? Cool, I like that idea. Let's set up the image view's constraints first. Let's do that whole ns layout.blah. Layout constraint dot activate some array. All right, we have to set. What are the 4 things we have to worry about with a constraint? Top, bottom, left, and right. Another way of putting it is the x and the y and the height and the width. Because we can set a constant height and then not have to worry about either one of the top or the bottom. We'd only need to set the top. If we had height, we could set a constant width and only have to worry about the left or the right, leading or the trailing. I think for the cell, it'll be easier if we just set a constant height and width for this image, and then we could potentially resize that image because we know the size of it. Don't have to worry about resizing that image for now. Honestly, don't really have to worry about images tomorrow, so let's just set this up real quick. So image view dot, how do I get the top? Thank you. Dot constraint. Cool. So I'm going to set it equal to self.content view dot top anchor. I'm going to put a little space between them, so I'm going to add this argument constant, make the space 10 from the top of the content view to the top of the image view. Now let's say image view dot leading anchor dot constraint equal to self dot content view dot leading anchor. Yeah. Run. Okay, that sounds good. So instead of the leading anchor, let's just center it. For the top anchor, I'm still going to leave it like set a space from the top because we're going to be laying these things out vertically. But I like this idea. Cool. So instead of setting the leading, we will say image view dot center, is that x or y? Thank you. Constraint is equal to self dot content view dot center x anchor. Sound good? Cool. Now let's set a constant height and width. So Ah, I need a comma, thank you. I don't need a comma again. Oh, I'm in an array. That makes sense. I think we learned that in like the second week. All right. So I'm going to set the height anchor to something. Has anyone ever made this before? Equal to a constant. Cool. So let's say that constant is, how big do you guys want this to be? 40. 44,000? 250? All right, great compromise. Great scaling. I agree with that idea. I'm gonna make it a tiny bit smaller actually. I'll do it 100 by 100. Cool. So we've got our constraints for our image view. All right. Now let's set up our labels. The reason I want to set up that image view first is because those labels are going to be below it, so they're going to be in a relative position to that image view. Constraints, they rule. You guys give me like 30 seconds real quick. No, I just gotta see something. Sorry? I just gotta check on something real quick, sorry. Okay. Before I go any further, because this definitely is part of what you'll be working on tomorrow, I should commit some changes. Does anyone remember how I can just look at all the changes I've made? What's the git command? So status will show me what files have changed. I want to see the actual changes. I do git add minus p. That'll start me adding all these things. I'm going to do git diff just to look through it. So if I do git diff, it starts to show me where it changed. I can hit space to kind of scroll through. That's all in that wonderful PBX proj file that I know you all love from your group project. What? I know you loved it. Cool, these are the changes in my viewcontroller.swift. And then it still looks like it's that stuff. All right, and then there's also a new file for review cell. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to git add view controller, or let's see, unit for review slash view controller.swift git commit add collection view to main VC. All right, let's keep working on the shopping item collection view cell now. Yeah. Choice 2, really where it's just if you're describing through your commit history what you've worked on. So it doesn't need to be perfect, but it needs to be kind of a timeline so we know what you did. Cool. Okay, so now we are working on this cell, and then when we're done with that cell, I want to add it. So let's add the name label, because from Nima's beautiful design, that's what's going to go next. So we'll add our NS layout constraint, dot activate, some array of constraints, the name label, dot top constraint. What is that going to be equal to? I love it. So it's going to be constrained to the bottom anchor of the image. You want to do a constant? Okay. What's that going to do? So what's that 10 going to do? Perfect. Love it. So we're saying the top of the label, if you go look at the whiteboard, is going to be a little bit of space from the bottom anchor of the image view. Great. Now, let's give this label a constant height. How do we do that? Name label dot height anchor dot constraint is going to be equal to constant. Boom. How tall do you want it to be? 6'4". I don't think that works. So some kind of like conversion. Let's do 6 times 4 and make it 24. Just for fun, you know. Okay, name label. Well, let's center it on the image view. So center x anchor dot constraint is going to be equal to the image view dot center x anchor. Cool. Wonder if that'll work. What do y'all think? Do we need to have a width? Very good question. A width? Okay. All right. User's choice. Okay. Dot trailing anchor dot constraint. So let's say that the name. Let's make it leading anchor. Sorry. Leading anchor. The name will never go farther left than the left side of the image. So image view dot leading anchor. Sorry? Yeah. So we're just saying the name can never go past this point. So there'll be a line overlap. Interesting.
Center is this thing centered in the screen there.
Interesting.
No, that wouldn't be different. You could still say,
Could say less than or equal to. Okay. That's fun. Less than or equal to that. I kind of think we can just leave that out. Maybe the label will auto size to what its content is. I don't know. Let's find out. All right. I did. I got rid of the leading anchor. Few indeed. All right. Our price label. Its top anchor is going to be equal to what? Name label dot bottom anchor. Let's say they're 10 points apart. Its height anchor. Let's make that 24 as well. Its center x anchor. I'm cool with it being centered on the image view as well. Cool. That's great. How do we get this into our view controller? Where are you at? Oh, I should probably change all the names and not be lazy about it. Got it. Thank you. All right. Add subviews, set constraints. All this stuff should appear in my shopping item collection view cell. Does it matter how I add the subviews? Very good question. Tell me more about that question, or more. Mm-hmm. Yes. When we add those subviews, I think I posted some docs about this the other day. When we add subviews, subviews are literally an array of views inside of the content view. So it's something called subview. views, if they were taking up the same space, the ones later in the array would be on top of the ones on top of them. But because we've constrained them all so that they're in different spaces, it shouldn't really affect anything right now. Anyone want me to repeat that? Cool, let's keep going. All right, I'm gonna add this stuff. Yes, I need to add the file now in my PBX project. And there, and there, and there. And now if I check my git status, oh, I actually have to add that file as well. Git add unit 4 review. Just added everything in there. So if I check my git status, I've modified that PBX proj, and there's a new file called that shopping item. That makes sense. I'm gonna commit it. Adds, shopping item, collection, view, sell. Should I make a repo for this? Okay. GitHub.com/new unit 4 review shopping cart. Make it public. That. Oh. Okay, it's in Slack. Sounds great. All right, what do we need to do next? We've got our cell set up. We've added a collection view to that view controller, but what else do we need to do in order to see the stuff in the collection views? Sorry? So tell me more about that. Cool. So let's do our extension like Alex was suggesting before. We're going to extend this thing called view controller. And what should it conform to here? Collection view delegate UI collection view data source. Cool. All right, now we get lazy for a second, and then it gives us this. Give me my error back, please. There we go. And our protocol stubs. The two required ones are. Kimball, how would you describe what these two things are? These two functions. Cool. So like, what does this one do, if you just described it? Sections or something a little different? Yeah. It's just like how many things? What about this guy? You just told me before. Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's say for now there are 3 cells. Because we actually don't have any models set up, so we have nothing to put into the view while we test this. How do we get our cell for item at to work here? There's something we have to set up when we actually create the collection view. Yeah, so we're going to have to register a cell class for a reuse identifier. What's that cell class called? The name of the cell we just created, .self, to refer to its class. What's a good reuse identifier? Anyone? Item cell, shopping item cell. Cool. So that's registered. And now to use it, yeah. Yeah. Oh, hmm? Yes? Why do you ask? Because Stishna got me a fancy new case. No. Stishna is great. If you if you haven't met her, you should really meet her. Okay. I'm sorry? I did. I was just, being self-indulgent. So that's happened before. Yes.
So, I read a few blogs, and there's a lot for, don't like the fact that you use string randomly on those,
Mm-hmm.
because it's continuing to not able to have that error.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that's what, will it be safe better and safe to use, or whatever. And, I'm using it.
I love it. Incredible. Let's just do it real quick. We could create an enum so that we can store all those like string values, like we might in a cell reuse identifier. So I could call this like cell reuse identifiers, which is a sub enum of string. What? That's weird. We'll just have this case be shopping item cell. And now we can just use it there. Cell reuse identifiers dot shopping item cell dot raw value. I'm going to call this identifier because each of those is a single one. I like that. That sounds delightful. This will be nice for scaling if there are more than one. Like, when everyone asks about best practices, this is probably a really good practice.
Is that it?
I created that up here.
You don't need to define it?
So that is an enum definition, right?
Oh, yeah, we can switch. All right.
Yeah. Oh, like a switch case. Sorry.
Are we supposed to give it a raw value?
So it'd be, So the raw value of this case is literally the string that, because this enum is an enum of string. The internet. But isn't that great? Don't you love looking at it? Okay. I love it. I could refactor it. Yep. Let's do that. So look around and those to look there. Item cell. Rename that guy. It's so delightful. Okay. So I've registered it. Why did I register it?
So you can identify
Identify the stuff. Yes, that's probably how I would talk about it, but tell me more. Levi, why did I register it?
so that people know how
Why did I register my cell on the collection view?
because otherwise there's no way for the user to know which cell you are referring
Cool. Because eventually I'm going to do something like I'm going to try to dequeue a reusable cell. We used to do this in table views with prototype cells. Now that we're using collection views, we have to do it ourselves because we're doing it programmatically. Isn't that awesome? So we are literally saying, what the reuse identifier will be for the cell that we've registered here when we create the collection view. And all we're doing is going ahead and dequeuing that thing that we registered up here, which has this nice raw value identifier, array. And then for index path, what do I put for index path? I love it. What do we have to do to this whole cell thing? Let's downcast it as something like shopping cart item you sell. Cool. I'm going to add a guard statement here. Say else, return a UI collection view cell. All right. We still don't have a model, so let's say cell.name label will be chicken. Cell.price label will be, thank you, 500. Cell.imageView.image will be a study guide of what? Gold. All right, let's just use one of the out-of-the-box images. I know this is not beautiful, but that's okay. Oh man, what did I do wrong with those labels?
Question marks keep popping up for me.
In your brain or in your computer? Okay. Let's hear about those question marks.
I don't know what's going on. It's like cell optional. Cell
So,
question mark. Dot price label.
did you use a guard statement to dequeue the cell
Oh.
when you downcast it? Cool. Let's just run this and see if it works. All right, I see a collection view. I don't see anything in my collection view. Dang. How could I set up the way things should look in my collection view? Ah, man. I forgot to say that this collection view is actually going to be set up by the view controller. Let's see now what happens.
Why did you make the section 3?
I just said there are going to be 3 things. Like, for now, since we don't have a model that's going to tell us how many things should be in here, this is just so we could experiment with it and see what happened. When we get a model by creating stuff, that's when we'll be able to set this equal to some model.count, right? Yeah. All right, I see stuff. They're too close together. How would you suggest we make it less close together? Change the width of the cell? Okay. Is there a function to do that? Hildy, what do you think? So let's see. What's inside of here? Those are 3 different things. So each one has its own constraints inside of it. We want to say what space it should take up in the collection view that it's been put in. Hang on one sec. Tia, what was the question? Pew. The data source. All right, so I'm hearing some suggestions. Set the width of the cell. Okay, retry that. How do I do that? extend this guy again. Extension, view controller is a UI collection view. How do I find that thing? What's it called again? Yeah. This guy? Okay. What does that do? Collection view delegate flow layout. As for item at, neat. Cool. How big should they be? So the image view is the biggest one, and I think it's like, it's 100 tall and 100 wide. Then the other ones are 10 down from it with constant heights of 24, so it's 34. Let's make it like 200 tall, like 150 wide. Just doing some back of the hand math, or back of the napkin. So the width will be 150, the height will be 200. I sure hope that works. How do we make sure this thing works? How do I make sure that what I'm doing in here affects the collection view that's actually in my view controller? I don't know, let's find out. Okay. So this is another form of delegation. Should it work? Delegate flow layout. Damn, what's it called? Damn. Layout. Damn. I don't think that's doing it. Maybe, let's see. That looks great. So this extension, UI collection view delegate, flow layout, gets used for any delegate for a collection view. So if I set the delegate for my collection view, it's going to do both the UI collection view delegate protocol stuff and the UI collection view delegate flow layout stuff. Defines methods that let you coordinate with a UI collection view flow layout object to implement a grid-based layout. Cool. All right.
I have a question. You have like multiple collection views. How does it know that? Does it know which collection view it's talking about? How does it know which cell or?
That's a really good question. So we could do something like if collection view dot, I don't know, we could add a tag to it when we create an initializer. We could use, what are some other ways people have done this? Multiple collection views in one view controller. That's okay. Okay. We could refer to the cell. I think what Ian's saying is like if I had multiple things in here and I wanted to return a different size or a different number of cells for those.
I literally meant like on 61, 62, we talked about this identifier, so it knows that like that's the cell that you're setting the size of. Like, how does it know? What's going on? What's setting the weights to that?
Yeah, I think what you would do is you would register different cells with different collection views, and then you would figure out which collection view you're talking about to tell it what size item to have in there. I don't think it's super important right now. Yeah. This is a very good question, though. Levi.
Who's going to spend more time later on the day?
Surely. Let's add it to this document I have called View Stuff. Collection, view, flow, layout. Sounds great. Okay. All right. Let's see. We've got our cells. We've got our flow layout. Look at that. It's beautiful. All right. Now we want to add the real functionality behind the app. Let's go look at what we wanted to do in the requirements. It's collection view. Each cell should have a name, a price, and a picture. Let's not worry about the picture as much right now. These items should load from the document directory, so they are available between launches. Interesting. Guess we're going to need a model, right? I know. Let's make a model. Yes. No, don't be lost. That's the question. Where is that? Where are you seeing that error? Okay. Which line of these? Okay. So collection view.data source, delegate.data source. Do you have these two extensions?
Yes, and there as well that says declaration
Hmm? Yeah? Ah. Delightful. Okay, let's make a model. Swift file. What should we call that item? Sounds good. Let's make a struct called item. What do we need this item to conform to in order to be something we can save to the documents directory? Oh, yes. Codable. And it tells you what it is. It's decodable and encodable. It can convert itself into and out of an external representation. If you make an item codable, you could send it on an API request, and you could save it locally, right? I think you will need to really, really remember that for tomorrow, just in my own personal opinion. Okay. So if an item is codable, you can change it from a Swift format to any other format. Two of those formats we've seen are JSON and like plist encodable or decodable, whatever that property list thing is, when you save it to a file locally. So Codable does that nice work for you where you can encode it, decode it. You could probably, if you wanted to persist data to your plist that you got offline, you could decode it, and then you could encode it again, decode it from JSON, encode it into plist stuff. P-cool, P-cool. All right, what should an item have on it? What's name going to be? Agreed. Let's have price be, well, let's look at our requirements. Price is going to get its value from a stepper. It is a CG assumption. Let's go with CG float for now. It's going to be some kind of number. Oh man, item does not conform to protocol decodable or encodable. Let's make this a double, and then we might have to just change what we get from the stepper into a double and vice versa. Cool. What's the last thing? Image, the data. Cool. Why did you make it data? Cool. Data is codable, and every property of an item that is codable must conform to the codable protocol itself. Tia.
I know we use coding keys for like the variable name itself, but it also works for the type.
No, coding keys is very specifically like what should the names of the keys be, like coding keys. So when it's going to decode and encode, what should match up between my Swift type and the format I'm encoding it into?
They're a version for the value.
A version for the value. I do not know. That's a really good question. Coding keys, but for values. Coding values. Let's come back to it. But it's a good question, and I think like the nice thing is we could probably set the type for any kind of piece of data, even if we have to create our own custom type. Okay, cool. So we got an item. What should we do next? Yeah, commit it. Cool, we added a new file called item.swift. Inside of that thing is that thing. We'll just add that reuse identifier. Oh no, there's all this stuff. I should have committed earlier. Check my git status. Ah man, I'm gonna check all that out. Git reset unit 4 view controller. I'm just gonna if I check my git status, I've just got these changes for the model. So I'm gonna git commit adds item model. Now I'll add the rest of that stuff as well. Cool. Registering that cell like we talked about before, setting up data source and delegate. Great. Git commit. Sets up collection view. Data source and delegate. Cool. Put like data source as a lazy variable. Oh, in here. Good question. I would do it here. Just because in here, I think of this as like a mixing bowl for collection view stuff, where it's like these are all going to be properties of here. But really what we're saying in our view did load is this stuff needs to work with our view controller in a specific way. So even though we're setting a property on the collection view, it's really a trait of the view controller that we've defined. So like these extensions are on the view controller itself. And I personally prefer, I guess, that we be setting them here so that we can know, basically in our view did load, we want to load up all the stuff that should be using our view controller. And the way I conceptualize these delegations is that's happening at the view controller level. Yeah. And I also think it's more readable because I think when you're setting up views in your lazy bars, like we did do a whole bunch of stuff here, but it was really about what's in the view, how does the view look, what's the size of the view. Like the view should, I see this as the responsibility of the view controller, whereas in my lazy var, I'm setting up all the things that are responsibility of that specific view. So like for me, the test case is if we pulled all of this out into a separate file, like as a subclass of UI collection view, and did all that initialization there and just had a var called collection view that initialized a new instance of that, we wouldn't want to be setting view controller stuff there. Is that good? Okay. Yes. So this setup for our collection view is all stuff relating to how the collection view works, whether that's its size, its background color, the way it's going to move, whether that be vertical or horizontal, or the cells that are in it. And so I kind of think of that as all like properties of the collection view, or like functionality specific to it that doesn't need any other context. But this data source and this delegate stuff require that this view controller exists. And so mentally, the test that I do is if I wanted to just make a subclass of UI collection view in a different like file, you know how you can just create a new Cocoa Touch class that's a subclass of another UI kit class. You could move all of this into that file. You can move all this stuff about the collection view into that file. And that would be fine because it's all information relating specifically to the collection view. But you couldn't in that file set up what its actual data source and delegate are. So I see that as happening on the view controller side as opposed to on the view itself. Why would I do like move these into here? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because then, you know, if my project's getting really, really long, I might have all this stuff in a separate file where, I don't know, that subview of UI collection view is called like my collection view. And I might just in here have my collection view, which is an instance of that new class I create. And that makes it much easier, at least in this view controller. This view controller doesn't get super crowded. There's not a lot of code in there. But then I would still want to set the delegate and data source for it somewhere, and that would be in this view controller level. No, this is still MVC. Yeah. MVC and MVVM. A view model is where the model actually interacts directly with the view. So like the controller kind of doesn't exist, and it's instead just transmitting. The view is kind of the controller as well, and it transmits model information right to it. And I don't think we have to worry about that right now, but it is definitely an interview question. So is RX Swift, which we don't know yet. Like, so are a lot of things. Don't worry, it's in that technical debt document. All that stuff we're going to talk about. But, yeah, okay. Should we take like a 6-minute break? Maybe even 7, maybe even 9. 9-minute break. 10.1 minute break. Oh my god. Oh my god.